Andreas, would you like to come back to those comments?
The comment in relation to technology, I mean, these are two different things. If you actually have recorded music and you do something with it, sampling, cutting it up and so on, that is actually already a new work or performance. It may infringe existing copyrights, but we shouldn't forget that you can still create copyright by infringing someone else's. So that's quite important. The thing is as well that, it's basically an issue of technology, whether you have got, ink and a pen, or whether you actually use pre-existing sounds. I mean, a piano gives you also some sort of pre-existing sounds, because if you touch the key, actually the sound comes out, unlike with the violin. So it's actually not that different. You just have some sort of modern version of it, which is technology where actually sample things, use pre-existing recordings, mess them up and so on. So that is an artwork in itself. So that doesn't actually make any difference. It's just a different method. You can write with a typewriter, a computer, or with a pen, and you still write. So that is not really making any substantive difference, I think, technology as such. It's just the use. And of course, it also doesn't matter whether you use Sibelius for writing your notes and get it played back to you, or whether you actually write it by hand. All that doesn't matter as such. That, I think, is not a substantive difference. I think what I wanted to say doesn't change in view of technology as such, I would say.
Okay. So it's fundamentally about commodification and the particular form that the commodity takes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, other points?
I just to follow up on that, I mean, I agree that technology's changed, but a lot of the underlying principles are still the same. But I just want to, this is not a copyright point, this is a point where an archivist's hacks. I'm training to be an archivist at the moment as well. There was a lot of chat about storage. And the thing about digital technology is it's an incredibly ephemeral technology. We know this, technological obsolescence and blah, blah, blah. So storage is not the issue, it's long-term preservation of these materials. And that requires constant attention when you're dealing with digital media. And it's no surprise that the British Library's preferred medium for text is still the microfilm. Okay? They microfilm everything because it will last. CDs do not. 5 years. If you've got stuff on a CD-ROM and you haven't checked it in the last 5 years, it's probably corrupt. So it was just a different point about technology.
Yeah, it's a good one.
The history of dance has demonstrated that works in the 18th, 19th century have all disappeared because there are no traces. And Australian lawyer Elizabeth Adney says, the infringer should know the parameters of your monopoly. So you've got to define it with certainty.
It's just a quick question to Andreas. I enjoyed your presentation. It was completely taken along by it. But I wondered, are you sure that processes of commodification are so hostile to creativity? I mean, you may be right that copyright is far less about supporting creativity and artists than it is about supporting publishing industries. But isn't there a benefit in having publishing industries that can manage risk and can play a role in selecting and quality selection and in ensuring a continuation of diversity?
They can, but they don't. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I think the reason is also, and that goes into sociological and historical issues. I'm not so competent, but if you look at sort of old record companies, and they had this sort of owner of the record company being really obsessed with sort of new music and so on, and they actually wanted the music. And it didn't matter so much whether they made money out of that. Of course they did anyway, but the music was first. And now you have got people who are basically managers who worked in a soap business first and shoes otherwise later on, and then now they sell music. It's all the same thing. And of course in the management schools you actually taught that. You manage a product, and the product doesn't matter whether it's music or shoes or whatever. And with that kind of approach, they don't. I mean, how would you actually then select, foster, sort out art? You couldn't really.
Well, simply by having a large scale of operations, I could probably have on board many, many artists, and therefore I could take risks through, I can manage my risk in that way.
You would think, but they don't either. Because then, for example, one of the classical things is sound recording copyright, extension of, preferably, indefinite. You would think that if they had done that, they wouldn't need the old copyrights anymore. They can happily go out of copyright because they make the money out of those who they recorded 20 years ago, 15 years ago, but they apparently haven't. It's actually an implied admission. They haven't done anything for 50 years, and so they have to rely on, Elvis Presley and so on.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. There's just a lot of rent seeking going on in terms of industry as well. But anyway.
It's good to hear Gillian arguing against herself and her critique of concentration. I'll remember that. Two people signal, and then I think we'll just, lunch is waiting outside, and the idea was that you bring it back in and continue talking. So, Bart, and then here.
I have a brief comment in terms of the kind of, and I agree that copyright is of course mainly about kind of property and commodification, but at the same time we also see that copyright law, or kind of the spirit of it, is being used for the complete opposite in terms of Creative Commons, for example, and licenses, whereby it is avoiding commercial exploitation or limiting commercial exploitation. And of course, and I refer to what Michael said earlier, there are of course artists that are not necessarily interested in making money, or like myself, I make music but I have a full-time job. So how do you relate it to these kind of mechanisms whereby copyright law is being used to kind of turn property rights upside down, to kind of use it to protect the public domain?